Van Halen 1 is not just one of my favorite Van Halen albums or one of my favorite rock albums, but it is one of my favorite albums of all time. This album has sold over 12 million units to date, and the legacy and career that stemmed off of this album is nothing short of amazing. What's up, guys? I'm back, and I'm starting a new review series, and today is the start of Van Halen, and we will go through every Van Halen album one by one, track by track, until we have ranked every song on every album, and then I will rank every album, just like I did on my Kiss reviews. So if you're a big Kiss fan, go on my channel and check that out. But I am very excited to get this Van Halen one rolling, because unlike Kiss, I know this album particularly, and I love this album, but outside of that, I just know singles. I know the hits. So there will be a lot of learning and getting to hear new stuff, and I'm very excited to see where these deeper tracks I've never heard in my life are going to be. Now, I've listened to 1984, and I've listened to a couple songs off Van Halen 2, and I know the Sammy Hagar hits, but not enough to feel comfortable calling myself a diehard Van Halen fan. But with this first album, I am ride or die with this album. I loved it the first time I actually sat down and heard it. I knew the songs off of it. I knew You Really Got Me. I knew Jamie's Crying. But when I bought this, I was probably 11 or 12. And I'm 30 years removed from when this album came out, essentially, when I listened to it. And it hit me right in the gut, just like it had to have for another 13-year-old in 1978, 79, 80, hearing these Van Halen albums for the first time. It was intense. I knew Running with the Devil was the opener, but you hear that solid bass, and then it just kicks off, and it was timeless. It didn't sound 30 years removed. It was something new, and then it spills right into Eruption that I had never heard anything like that. I knew my Ace Frehley solos, I knew my stuff like that. But hearing it, even to this day, it's still one of the most impressive things you can do. It's a landmark that if you can play that on guitar, you have now separated yourself from the pack. And then as the album rolled on and rolled through, I just found these other tracks and other tracks and other tracks that started taking the top spots away from these singles that I already knew and loved and grew up with. And that album just packs a punch. I bought it on vinyl, one of the first vinyls I ever bought when I started collecting them when I was 13, 14. I can go to the exact spot that it skips on Atomic Punk. Every time it skips right there. But there's like a nostalgia to it in a weird way. Every time I hear this song, I'm just waiting for that skip in my head. That's a side tangent, doesn't matter. This album is huge for me. It was huge for the world. Selling 12 million units, going diamond status. That's insane, especially for a debut album. All the paths that stemmed off of this album, the LA Sunset Strip scene, all of that stuff, it's just a catalyst for some iconic moments in rock history. I've rambled long enough, so let's get into this. Coming in at number 11, and these bottom two just have the unfortunate task of being sandwiched between my top two, and that's the biggest problem. This whole album is great. By no means is something coming in at 8 versus number 3 saying I don't like this song. I love every track on this album, but I do have an order of the ones I love. So no hate towards any of these songs, but number 11 is Little Dreamer. And it's just kind of a slow, dreary song, and it's a good song. I like it. If I'm putting my vinyl on or doing things, I'm not going to skip through it. If I'm going song for song, I'm not just going to click this one just to hear it. But if it's rolling through the album, by no means does it get a skip. It just kind of has a different flow to the rest of the album. It's kind of a slow, dreary side to it, and it's fine, and it's good. But it's kind of, again, it's got the unfortunate task of being sandwiched between my top two favorites. And if you know the track list by heart, you'll be able to guess them right now, because my number 10 is On Fire. It's got a lot of energy. It's intense. It's just pure and raw, and I love this song. Again, and it's grown on me as time goes on. I listen to it more, but this song used to get skipped every single time because I would just leave it alone. Where my album ended is where my album would end. I wouldn't even put this on. It didn't cross my mind because it was right after my favorite song on the whole album. You get just a piercing David Lee Roth at the end, and it's just great, that chorus. And it honestly, it could probably go up. And any of these songs on any given day, for the most part, you can move them up and down a couple spots, whatever mood I'm in. But for right now, my bottom two are just unfortunate and got stuck between my top two. And coming in at number 9, I was debating switching this with my number 8, but my number 9 is Atomic Punk, and I can hear it skipping in my head, just like I talked about earlier. But you have a very cool guitar sound to it and feel, and it just like the last song, it encompasses that rawness and that energy that you get. But my number 8 kind of packages that a little better and has, in my opinion, the most iconic riffs, because I've heard so many people play it on the guitar, and that's Ain't Talking About Love. That opening, that song kind of encompasses the David Lee Roth era to me, because I've always heard it said that David Lee Roth talks about sex and Sammy Hagar sings about love, and this song is Ain't Talking About Love. So David Lee Roth, that's how I've always had him in my head. And then it becomes more true as I would listen to more Sammy Hagar stuff. And it was just, that's how I always separate them. And this song is like the epitome to me of Van Halen. It's just bruising, dirty, macho lyrics. He's not talking about love. It's just got the riffs. It's got everything you need. And to have a good Van Halen song, you need it all. Number 7 is one of, I would say, in my top 3 most iconic guitar runs ever. And that is Eruption. It's so raw and intense. And it's number 7 because the other songs have words and they're fun and you can sing along and you get the fun guitar and the fun lyrics and everything like that. But the first time you hear this, I challenge anyone, the first time you take an 11-year-old and you put this on, it will blow their mind. It blew my mind the first time. I had never heard it. I'd always heard Running with the Devil. I'd heard You Really Got Me. I did not know there was a song in between that, so I bought the album. And it's just mind-blowing when you see anyone play it. Brad Paisley, the country singer, who I really enjoy Brad Paisley's music, but when you see him live, he will bust out an Eruption. He will do Hot for Teacher. He'll do all these things, and it automatically makes him go from this is country singer Brad Paisley to, oh shit, this dude has the chops. You get the finger tapping, you get the whammy bar sounds and just all that. It's just unlike anything you'd really heard. The closest thing I think you can hear to that is Ace's solo in Alive 2. Has a very similar feel to it, but this one just is a punch to the gut. It comes out so hard, which leads into the song that it leads into naturally on the album, and that is You Really Got Me at number 6. And this used to be a lot higher and was one of my favorites. It was my favorite when I only knew the hits, and it's classic. It's timeless. It just takes the original song, which I really enjoy the original song and I really enjoy the Kinks, and this adds its own flavor and flair to it in a way that you can almost forget the Kinks version exists. And number 5, the intro to the album, Running with the Devil. And when you hear that opening bass line just thud through, just dong, 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 and he hits the little tops of the strings and makes that little chime right into the slide in the riff, you know that you're in store for an album that, especially in 1978, that you've never heard before. This is energy. This is something different. And this album kicks it off. It's not fast-paced like Atomic Punk or On Fire or anything like that, and it's not slow like Little Dreamer. It just goes. You get the full range of David Lee Roth, you get the solid riffs, a nice intro solo, the band's playing tight, you got the bass, you got everything, and this just sets you up for an experience with this album. Great opening track. One of the best opening tracks of all time. If I had to sit down and make a list, I bet it'd be in my top 10, just opening tracks to an album. Which brings me to number 4, which was my first favorite song by Van Halen. Apparently my parents said I'd sing this a lot as a kid. I must have heard it on the radio, and that is Jamie's Crying. So fun. And this song kind of gives you that vibe of what you're going to get to come with Van Halen. So you get a lot of realness, energy on this first album, whereas the albums go later, they're more party, more fun, more lighthearted, kind of poppy rock, and this is the poppiest one on this album per se. And one thing I can't believe I haven't touched on to this point yet is the harmonies and how this band vocalizes. I've made a lot of this is my top 5. If I had to make a list, it'd be the top. Their harmonies would be in the top 3 of any band I could think of, if not number 1. I dare say number 1. It's so iconic. You can just hear their voices. And even when they got Hagar, you can hear that there's a frequency they hit that when they all harmonize together, you know without a doubt 100% it is Van Halen and nobody else. And they perfect that in this song. You got that chunky little riff, you got their harmonies, it's catchy, and it's a precursor, I think, of what's to come with Van Halen. Number 3 is I'm the One. And this used to be one that I didn't pay too much attention to. It would just kind of go over. I would never skip it, but it would just go over. But as I've gotten older and I've listened to this album more, and I re-listened to this album a couple days ago just to refresh my brain a little bit, I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed this song. It has every aspect of them. You get the vocals and the harmonies, you get the fast-paced guitar, you get the drums that are, again, a precursor to what you're going to hear in 1984, and it's just all the great things that this band does, especially in this era, put into one song. You don't have the slowness or the dreariness or things like that. You don't have too much pop. You just have pure Van Halen aggression, and especially the lyrics talking about all these kids running the music biz and stuff, and it kind of puts you in that headspace of these are the young dudes coming in, kicking the door in, and they're about to change shit up. And there's just something fun to think about with that. My number 2, and these were so tight to figure out, but I'll explain my number 1 and why it's important. My number 2 is Feel Your Love Tonight. The first time I heard this one, it was immediately to the top of my list. It was so catchy. Just like Jamie's Crying is kind of the poppier-esque one, this has that same kind of feel, but you get the harmonies, and it's just a good blend. It's fun to listen to. Like I talked about with I'm the One before, where you get all the fastness and rawness and intensity and drums and this and that encompass Van Halen, all their best parts into one. This song, I think, takes their future elements where they're a little more fun, a little more poppy, a little more this, that, and it encompasses that into their best version of that style. And that's why Feel Your Love Tonight is my number 2. The fun part about doing this ranking is I'm not a diehard Van Halen fan. I don't know anything outside this first album and the hits, so I have no idea what opinions of mine are controversial. Whereas when I did my Kiss reviews, I know the fact that I like this song is going to piss a lot of people off, and the fact I don't like this album is going to piss a lot of people off. With this one, I'm completely blind. So my number 1 on this album could be agreed upon, or it could be fought in the comments. I have no idea. And that's going to be like that for every album, which is really exciting to see how many people will love me or how many people I will piss off. But my number 1 is Ice Cream Man, and I'll tell you why. So before I bought this album, I was talking with my dad, I was a little kid, about Van Halen and Jamie's Crying and stuff. And I always liked music growing up as a kid. I always listened to music, so I listened to all kinds of different stuff. And I was talking about Van Halen with him, and he said they had this song Ice Cream Man. Never heard it. I didn't have a means to listen to it or internet or anything to hear it, so I never got to hear it. I just always heard he had a song Ice Cream Man that my dad liked. So I finally buy the album. I get to listen to it. It's so different. You get that, it's just a different energy and vibe that you get. This slow side that's unique for them in a sense, like slower than, it's not just droning on, it's the little acoustic sound, and it's catchy, and it's almost a whole different genre for a third of the song. And then when it kicks off, dude, they're fucking flying and they are going. So I had that. And then a buddy of mine who's passed away since then, but this was, we would always play this song, and he'd play it on guitar, and anytime we would say something was like a guarantee, you'd always have to go, guarantee, every time, because that's just what he would do at the fucking end of the song every time. So there's like a nostalgia thing for this song that's fun for me, and it'll always be there. So the emotions behind this will keep it at number 1, maybe forever. It's like a palate cleanser on this album. And then when it kicks off, it's just balls to the wall going, and it's fun. So guys, that's my ranking. Put your ranking down below. Again, I have no idea if I'm in the minority or the majority with any of these, and it's only going to get worse as we keep going on through their discography. And I apologize for the layoff between videos. I'm not going to let that happen again, or at least try not to. I had a baby about 6 months ago, so had to get used to the new father life. I was having issues getting a home, still battling issues with all this today, but I finally got it slowed down enough that I can at least put a microphone in a closet right now and record into my phone and get something out there and kind of get that routine back, because I really enjoyed making these videos. It was a very fun process for me to kind of learn the editing and do different things and audio and stuff. So hopefully I'll be back consistently, and as things are sitting right now, I should be, and I'm going to aim for at least a video a week, hopefully 2. We'll just have to see how it goes, but I've kind of got everything situated and adjusted. Hopefully I didn't lose all my momentum and all my fans and any growth or anything, but we'll just have to see what happens. And as we go on, we will be covering more Van Halen, but after that, we'll be covering different genres. I'm not just going to stick in classic rock. I'll do some metal, I'll do some country, I'll do some rap, I'll do 90s, 2000s, 50s. I love all eras and styles of music, so this channel is going to branch out to that more. So that's something to look forward to. Hope to keep it going, guys. Put it down in the comments what your ranking is. Do you love this album, hate this album? Let me know. Let me know which album you think is going to be a surprise to me in this review. Again, I don't know much at all, anything past this album, so what albums are you waiting for me to hear where you go, oh, I can't wait for him to hear this, he'll love it? Or you're like, oh shit, I can't wait for him to hear this, it's gonna suck and he's gonna hate it. So let me know, guys. Put it in the comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Love you guys. Peace.